All right, again, it's called to order the regular school board meeting of the Royal Oak School District on February 13th, 2025 at 6:32 p.m. So I'd like to ask everybody to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Moving on to item number 3, which is the standing approval items. 3.1 is the acceptance of the agenda. I would like to add as something between 3.2 and 4. I don't think it necessarily needs its own number, but I would like to observe a moment of silence this evening. So with that, do I have a approval of the agenda? Excellent. Agenda is approved as amended. Item 3.2 is the approval of the minutes. May I have a motion on that? Mrs. Cook.
Resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the following minutes. January 9th, 2025, organization and regular minutes. February 5th, 2025, special minutes workshop.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. Wiki. Mrs. Anderson, will you have a roll call?
Trustee Wiki? Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our added agenda item. Our community has been impacted by unimaginable loss. Loss and grief is processed in as many ways as there are people to experience it. Tonight we mourn the loss of one of our youngest students, Thomas Cooper. Also Ariel Anderson, Alex Werner, and Brian Fraser, who lost their lives in a senseless act of gun violence 2 years ago tonight at Michigan State University. Please join us in a moment of silence for these young lives lost. Thank you. Which brings us to item number 4.1, the first reading of revised, replaced, and/or recommended policies and guidelines. May I have a motion? Ms. Jasinski?
Resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves a first reading of the policies and administrative guidelines being revised, replaced, and/or recommended as presented in the agenda.
And do we have a second? Ms. Anderson? And may we have a roll call?
Trustee Jasinski?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma?
Yes.
Trustee Cook?
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
Trustee Wiki?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Is now item 4.2 on tonight's agenda, which is the second reading of revised, replaced, and/or recommended policies and guidelines. Do we have a recommendation? Ms. Cook?
Resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves a second reading of the policies and administrative guidelines being revised, replaced, and/or recommended as presented.
And do we have a second? Ms. Anderson? Any discussion on the motion?
I would just like to note that one of these is revised voting policy for the Board of Education. We've been doing roll call votes for quite a long time here, but it's not necessary, and we, this policy, one of these policies will revert back to roll calls, or spoken or raising hands or whatever, but we do not have to do the roll calls. So in case you wonder when things change, it might be in just a minute.
Yeah, just to expand on that, any school board trustee can ask for a roll call vote at any time for any vote, so we do still have that option.
And just one more thing, there are a few items that I believe that are required. Roll calls are required. So we will always do that.
Correct. Any further discussion? Mrs. Anderson, can we have a roll call?
Yes. Trustee Van Heitzma.
Yes.
Trustee Cook.
Yes.
I'll vote yes. Trustee Alexander.
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski.
Yes.
Trustee Wiki.
Yes.
Trustee Jasinski.
Yes.
This motion passes.
Thank you. On to item number 5, which are proclamations. 5.1 is a proclamation on Black History Month. May I have a recommendation? Mrs. Alexander.
Whereas Black History Month was formally adopted in 1976 to honor and affirm the importance of Black history throughout our American experience, and whereas the history of people of African heritage goes back tens of thousands of years and includes some of the greatest and most advanced and innovative societies in the history of human experience. And whereas African Americans have played a significant role in the history of the United States, from the early days of the pioneers to our present-day leaders in such industries as aerospace, finance, government, and international trade. And whereas during Black History Month, all Americans are encouraged to reflect on the rich history of and teachings of African Americans and bear witness to the progress, beauty, and achievements they have made throughout society. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Royal Oak Schools Board hereby designates February 2025 as Black History Month throughout the school. We encourage the celebration of the collective ingenuity, creativity, cultures, and traditions of African Americans and encourage participation in educational events honoring the contributions of Black Americans.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Mrs. Cook. Any discussion on the resolution? I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Item 5.2 is a proclamation on Career and Technical Education Month. Do I have a recommendation? Mrs. Cook.
Whereas February 2025 has been designated Career and Technical Education, CTE, Month by the Association for Career and Technical Education, and whereas CTE offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for true career readiness, and whereas students in CTE programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase their engagement and achievement, and whereas CTE provides students with career exploration opportunities early in their educational experience, which enables them to make informed and beneficial decisions about their academic coursework and pursue established programs of study and career pathways. And whereas leaders from business and industry nationwide report increasing challenges related to addressing the skills gap and connecting qualified professionals with careers in critical and growing CTE-related fields, such as advanced manufacturing, cybersecurity, energy, healthcare, information technology, and transportation. And whereas CTE prepares students for these and other fulfilling careers by offering integrated programs of study that link secondary and post-secondary education and lead to the attainment of industry-recognized credentials. And whereas CTE programs ensure that employers have access to a qualified and thriving workforce, ensuring our nation is a strong and competitive economy. Now, therefore, the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education do hereby proclaim February 2025 as Career and Technical Education Month in Royal Oak Schools.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. Wiki. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Brings us to item number 6 on tonight's agenda, which is public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, a person may address the board on an agenda or non-agenda item by completing a note card located inside the boardroom and place the card in the basket prior to the citizen comment period. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. If you need more time, you are offered a second opportunity to address the board at the end of the meeting with an additional 3 minutes. Please address the board as a whole and not individually. Public comment is not intended for the exchange of dialogue. This is a time for members of the public to express their views. We are paying attention to your comments and appreciate them. However, school board members do not respond to public comment during the meeting. Questions that arise from public comment will be referred to the superintendent or her designee for review, study, and possible future response. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. And seeing no public comment at this time, move on to agenda item 7, which is recognition, presentations, and reports. 7.1 is our report from the Wellness Committee. It's my understanding that Mrs. Abella will be presenting.
Good evening. Yes, I am a member of the Wellness Committee, and I'd also like to introduce tonight Daniel Russell, our Athletic Director, and Mike Jacobs, our Food Service Director, and they have a presentation for you. If you just give me a second, I can get that up for them. All right. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. Happy snowy Thursday. I'm from West Michigan, so seeing this much snow is actually great. I love it. My kids went sledding today, so it was a great day. I know we had no school, but it was awesome to be with my kids and all the snow. So, so myself and Mrs. Abella, we facilitate the Wellness Committee. It's a great committee. We have a lot of members, right? So we're doing some really, really great things with our Wellness Committee, and I'll explain it here in a second. I wanted to put up here these members because these are our consistent members. We meet quarterly, 4 times a year, and these people here really help out. We have some great members, great contributors from the community, and I'm thankful they're all there. They're much smarter than me, and they really help us out. So next up, the Wellness Committee. I'll read this here. So the Wellness Committee shall be responsible for the following: the assessment of the current school environment, the review of the district's wellness policy, presentation of the wellness policy to the school board for approval, measurement of the implementation of the policy, and a recommendation for the revision of the policy. And then here's our description that we updated this year. The Wellness Committee provides direction, oversight, and builds awareness to support health-promoting activities for our students and staff. These activities include nutrition, physical activity, substance use prevention and education, and mental health. A big topic we talk about every week is food service. We have Mike Jacobs, the absolute best. We're very thankful he's on our committee, and he'll give you a little update about what we talked about.
All right, thank you. So we're going to just go over some updates and things we've been doing in food service this year. We start in the bottom left-hand corner. You see a chart that is showing you year-to-date this school year versus last school year, and you can see average daily breakfasts are up, average daily lunches are up, sales are up, and enrollment, it may be up. Those numbers fluctuate quite a bit, so at any rate, showing you that last year was a very busy year and this one's even busier. And while we're doing all those lunches, we're also doing some other things. You can see some composting going on the top row of pictures. On the left, you've got some of the high school kids sorting out some of the composting bins to get the right things in there and the right things out of there into the garbage. Next to it is the setup in the high school where there's a composting bin next to a garbage can. And then over in the elementary schools, that's just one example from one school, how they have the composting bin next to or in between 2 garbage cans so kids can put the right things in the right bins. And then on the far right, we introduced this compostable plastic cup that we serve our side vegetables and fruits in every day. So those are being composted as well. Back to the middle of the left, in February, we started making halal burgers and chicken nuggets available in the elementary schools. That was in response to the community that had asked for those items. And so we're 2 weeks in and it's going well. We may expand that to the middle school and high school depending on how it goes in the elementary schools. And then to the right of that, one of the things we like to do is a program called Global Eats, where we highlight food from different countries. In February, we visited India, and you can see on the right-hand side, that's the middle school. lunch, and on the left is just the menu board at the high school. We do want to expand into the elementaries as well. We'll probably do side dishes from certain countries. It's a little hard to do the entrees in the elementary schools. And then the next row of pictures is the Fair Check certification of completion. Every food service employee went through allergen training this year and received a certificate, so we're up to speed on allergens. And on the bottom right, we've got some representatives that won first place in a high school trivia contest before Christmas. That's Laura Holden, Susan Denellen, Tracy Wiltsey, and Valerie Meineke. And that was before Christmas, and they were the first place winners. So some of the stuff we've been doing. Any questions? No, it wasn't. It was an all-school trivia contest, and yeah, they took first place.
And then our last slide here, these are some of our initiatives, past and future. So I've been on the committee for a year and a half, and Mike and Kathy can give a better idea. In the past, it started as physical activity and food service. We've really moved into mental health and substance use education. We've really moved in that direction. Ever since COVID, that's been a really big focus. So we're in the school, we do an amazing job. We have parents that are on our committee, and they say the school's doing an amazing job providing these resources. At the bottom, as you can see, I put parents need more information. That's been the general, every parent that sits on our committee, they're like, you guys do a great job with the students, let's find a way to get it out to the parents as well. So we have, again, many programs that we're talking about. I talk with Mr. Loomis at the principal at the high school about we did fentanyl fathers, right? And then next time, let us know about that ahead of time, and then we can somehow get involved with it as well. So we're just trying to find ways to help our students. That's what matters most, is trying to find a way to help our students and really help them through a very challenging time in their life. And that's why we're here for the Wellness Committee. We thank you for having us, and if you have any questions. Yeah.
I don't have a question, just some comments, but, so I'm grateful for all the work that you guys have done on this committee this year and last year too. I think it's very positive. I think we have pretty high engagement, which is really important. And people really feel the benefit of the committee, so I think that's really important. And just even, we have parents need more information, and so we always say that, parents think it's never my kid, I don't need to worry about it. You do need to worry about it. It's happening everywhere, and you need to be an educated parent. And so, we talk all the time through the district and PTAs and everywhere about how do we keep parents educated on all these things that help your students, and also to help them stay out of, bad situations as well. So I'm grateful for all the programs that the school is doing, and it just gets better and better. So thank you for all the work, and Mike, the food is always good. And your team is always so cheerful and supportive, so I'm really grateful for all of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
On that communication note, where can parents find more information? Is there like a specific part of our district website that has this information, or?
We talk about this at every meeting, yeah. So
Excellent.
The
Thank you.
counselors, always have a ton of information, but, I think we want to go more digital with it, so it's out there on the website and whatever avenue that is. But that's something we explore. The past meeting, we really hit on that pretty hard, yeah.
Right, the school psychologist, Ms. Manson, maintains a site, part of our district website that has a lot of those resources as well.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both for being here, and thank you, Ms. Sabella, for doing it. I know one of the reasons for having this committee report is really because, one, it does link to our strategic plan as a district. Our MyKIP goals include wellness goals, both for staff and students this year, and MyKIP is a part of the way that we do school level and district level improvement planning for the year with the state of Michigan. And so it all ties together. So these are not standalone functions or activities. And thank you, Mr. Russell, for mentioning it, because I do think there are many things that go on at our schools. Our PTAs sponsor very meaningful workshops for parents at various schools. We are consistently getting outreach from community partners that want to come in and afford. It's how Fentanyl Fathers first came. I met with the gentleman who's lost his son to that tragic drug issue. Sorry. And I do think that we need to collaborate more. I do think we need to pull our resources together. So I'm glad it's on the website, and I also want to find a way that we can have all of the groups working together to ensure that our parents know everything that's happening around this topic and subject. So thank you. And I know there's also board members on there. So if there's anyone else that wants to share more, or if anyone in the community is interested in joining the Wellness Committee itself, there is a spot on our website, or you can join our committees, and there's several of them, or you can reach out to my office and we can make sure you get that resource.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, excellent. Moving on to item 7.2, which is diversity, equity, inclusion. I'd like to welcome up Mrs. Ashley Phillips.
Good evening, everyone. So we've just got a few updates and acknowledgements. I'll start off with a quick community acknowledgement, talk about some professional development opportunities that we participated in with the county, with the state level and country level, and in-house in Royal Oak as well. The save the date for our 227 read-in, an update on our second annual Reading Rocks tour, and our wrap-up / update for our religious diversity journeys. So I first want to start it off with a thank you. There has been lots going on in the country, of course, and diversity, equity, and inclusion has been in the center of it. I received so many emails from staff and community, first asking, where does Royal Oak stand on our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives? Are we still standing firm on everything, and reaffirming their support and just thanking us for all that we've done. So from my heartfelt gratitude, thank you to our community for reaching out and for continuing that support. Going on to our professional learning, we've again been working with the MDE on the Michigan LGBTQ+ Students Project, and our last meeting that we had was Upping Your Game, how coaches and athletic directors can support the full participation of LGBTQ+ student athletes. So our theme was words and actions matter, which we know they do for sure. So we talked about how some of these issues can manifest in our athletics and all teams, whether it's being discouraged from playing on or being kicked off of a team, being shunned by teammates and or parents, hearing those comments in the locker rooms and in the stands as well, hearing anti-LGBTQ+ slurs being used by even coaches, players, and spectators, and being made uncomfortable in general. So we said, let's look at the cycle first. Children rarely report hearing those homophobic language used at home. A lot of times they say around 8 years old, they're hearing it, and sometimes they may be hearing it from coaches or other players. The cycle next goes to where they're hearing these comments, but it's not being shut down or stopped, and its next cycle being replaced with laughter or just acceptance. So then the LGBTQ+ students that are hearing this may hide their identity or drop out, and the invisibility just maintains this cycle. The next part is where they're teaching it and to the next generation as well. So that cycle just continues where those negative languages and comments and just viewpoints have been passed on. So we looked at it and said, okay, what can coaches and athletic directors do? For the coaches who are one-to-one with the students a lot of times, they can prepare and educate themselves and also self-reflect and check their own behaviors as well. Then go on to model the appropriate behaviors and that respect. They should be clear and proactive with their expectations with the teammates, with the full team as well, and with the parents, and maintain that communication, especially if there's an incident that happens, let's talk it out and find out what we can do. That last step is respond, intervene, and address. So they should address those inappropriate behaviors and then, of course, report them to the athletic directors. The athletic directors, in turn, can make sure that they know and implement all school policies. They set clear expectations for their teams, for other coaches as well, and model them themselves. and then support LGBTQ plus athletes, coaches, and those who speak up on those, up on their behalf as well. And definitely identify best practice resources and utilize them. So all of this information has been shared with our athletic directors and our coaches as well. Next up, we have a webinar that actually took place yesterday evening. So it was Sustaining K-12 Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiatives in a Changing Landscape. So they gave tips, tools, and strategies of what we can do. The first thing that we acknowledge is just to keep that conversation going. Encourage empathy and the exercising of empathy and having those courageous conversations in our community. Going out and getting to know your community. Parents in the community can't always come to the school events, so go meet them where they are. Providing inclusive accommodations. We talked a lot about making sure that our events are inclusive, and they said have food at every event because you never know if that may be a late night for parents. You can already have the food there and ready, and that will be one thing that may bring them out to the PTF event or bring them out to any events that the school are having. Making sure that the communication is maintained. So if we have the coffee chats and different things where different people in the community and parents can come out to talk to superintendents, talk to principals, and talk to leaders and teachers in the community, that helps a lot, especially with the inclusion piece. Acknowledging diversity as the noun and equity and inclusion as the verbs in that in that acronym there. And acknowledging for sure that we do not have all the answers. So making sure you're honest and transparent about all of that. So the huge part that we focused on was keeping that conversation going and making sure those relationships and trust are built. Next up, we had our systems of inequity with Oakland schools. For our February session, we talked about critical self-reflection, and a huge part that we had to acknowledge is that for self-reflection is not always starting with self. We need to look at the different avenues in our the different data, and definitely surveys and feedback from the community, from if you're a classroom teacher, from your students, to give you the information that you can use to self-reflect. Leaders, identify and understand the oppression and barriers that students and their communities face. So when we were in our breakout rooms, we just talked about what privilege are we bringing into our classroom, into our schools, from our own backgrounds that we may be ignoring. We have to acknowledge those and acknowledge how they show up in different conflict resolution contexts as well. And then also to courageously push our colleagues and staff to do that same, that critical self-reflection. So when conflicts especially happen in our school or in a classroom, making sure that we acknowledge what we're bringing into that conversation and how it may provide a blind spot for something that the student or the teacher is saying as well. And for our own ROS, DEI professional development, we invited Mrs. Kim Phillips-Knope back, and we did the Laying the Foundation, Understanding the Identities and Experiences of LGBTQ plus students in Michigan's Part 2. We had great conversations and especially acknowledged the impact of having a affirmative space and making sure we have safe spaces for our students. We went through different scenarios and strategies, then next steps, and we went to our POP method. So we were so excited to break up into groups and do group discussions, first to make sure we had some consistency amongst grade levels in schools, and then to also identify purpose, outcome, and process. So what you see here is a chart that our special ed office partnered with and came up with, and they said that the purpose was just to create a safe and inclusive space for LGBTQ plus students. They looked at an outcome for full inclusivity and feedback, and their process, reviewing their special ed evaluation, and definitely reiterating the vision and mission of Royal Oak Schools. So we are so excited to keep working with Ms. Phillips-Knope next year as well to keep this conversation going. And a few save the dates. We have our 2025 African American Read-In, which will be here, right here in this room in the board office on Thursday, February 27th. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. We will be featuring Jacqueline Woodson as our featured author. She'll be zooming in to talk with all different schools in the county, and we're so excited because Mrs. Woodson was also one of our 2024 Royal Berry featured authors for our Royal Berry Challenge. So a lot of our secondary students will recognize her as well. We've invited our PTAs and different vendors to come in, and we actually we also reached out to our Royal Oak Public Library, and I asked them if they can do some on-site card sign up. Unfortunately, they have an event that same night. It's very busy. February 27th, there are a few different events coming up, but they are going to give us some programming and marketing information to give out to parents. So we're so excited. If you can, please use the QR code to scan in. It's also on our website as well, and it was featured in our dispatch. So please sign up, and we're inviting students K through 12 to come join us. And I'm very excited to announce our Bigger and Better 2025 Royal Oak Schools Reading Rocks Tours. So last year we had about 15 volunteers. We serviced so many students, and we only had about a 2 to 3 week tour. But this one is going to run all month, throughout the month of March. And our board office and our staff and our school board members will be going into classrooms as mystery readers and readers for our students. So we're super excited for that to come about. There are other events and different projects going on, so please stay tuned to the dispatch and to different community newsletters and classroom newsletters, because there are lots of events happening between now and March. We have a few quick testimonies that we'll hear from 2 of our RGJ students from Brahms Middle School. Then we actually want to hit on that our Hinduism journey was actually rescheduled because of inclement weather that day. And then the Holocaust Museum visit is going to be rescheduled into March because of a half day. But we are going to bring our special guests, the students and the directors from RDJ, to come speak with us at our March 13th school board meeting. So you'll get to meet them then. But here's a quick recap from 2 students. I'm Owen and I'm from Roms. And today we went to Temple Israel. My favorite part was probably either the wedding, because my friend was the groom, and that was very funny, or probably when we got to see the Torah. That was very nice, and I'm really happy that I got to be here because my friend's bar mitzvah, Ari, his bar mitzvah was on the 7th, this Saturday, so I really liked coming here to see what it might be like during Ari's bar mitzvah and learning about everything here so I can have a greater understanding.
I'm Brody and I'm from Royal Oak. Today we are at Temple Israel. I learned so much cool stuff about the culture and everything. My favorite part was probably the Torah and learning about how they had so many inside the Ark. So if we can clap really quickly for those students. I'm so excited for them to come personally share their testimonies. The mock wedding was mentioned. That was a favorite part of ours. We were all laughing and in tears as the students reenacted everything. And we were so excited to hear that one of our own counselors, Michael Bettman, who was actually a chaperone on this trip as well and has been helping out throughout all the journeys, he actually got married in the room that we were in for lunch that day. So the students were really excited to hear that, and it brought that nostalgia there as well. So thank you. That is all that I have for now. If there are any questions. Yes, Mrs. Van Hestema.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all the work that you continue to do. And we just had a brief conversation before the meeting, just talking about how strong our mission, vision, and values remain in the district, and our beliefs as a board, and the beliefs of the district, too, in supporting students and staff today. And every day is a challenge, and every day becomes a little bit more challenging, but we remain very steadfast in all of those things, and I think that's really important. And I'm glad to hear you received a lot of positive feedback. And thank you for those students and their experiences. That's always nice to hear about, too, as well.
Yes, they were supposed to come tonight, but it worked out well where they'll be with us next month with no snow, hopefully. Yes, Mr. Wiki.
For the read-in, is that only an in-person thing, or will there be a Zoom link that people can join through?
For the read-in, it's actually going to be virtual with the author, but we will be in person here, Zooming with her. Yes.
Thank you.
No problem. Yes.
One more thing. So I'm excited for the March is Reading Month again, And you provided books for those of us that chose to accept them and stuff. So that was actually really nice, and I'm wondering if you'll do that again this year.
Yes, I've included some information on the invitation that you all will get. We'll
Okay.
make sure we have some diverse text
Okay,
around.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you have any other comments? I'd like to, again, thank you, Ms. Phillips, for ignoring all the outside noise, continuing the work that you're doing. It's great work. And on a personal note, I want to thank you so much for the work you're doing with the Michigan LGBTQ Student Project. I think it's been a long overdue necessity in our schools around the state or around the country, and I'm very excited that you're taking on that project and working with those students.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 7.3, which is student representative to the board. Ms. Hamilton, do you have an update for us?
In fact, I do, as I do every month. During this week for Royal Oak schools, there is midwinter break until the 18th, and then on the 19th for the high school specifically, the scheduling material will be passed out for this year, for next year's setup and all of that. And then Haven training will be starting soon around the 19th, around that time too, throughout like the 19th through the 25th. And for schools, I know that there is the parent-teacher conferences coming up soon, and so the sign-up date will be on the 21st at 3 p.m. That starts up soon. And there will be a Freedom Footsteps event soon coming on from the 23rd on Sunday at 1 to 4 p.m. at the Royal Oak Historical Museum. And there will be a lot of activities there. There'll be an art project, light refreshments, and then storytelling by the Diversity Club. I love Diversity Clubs, always a fun club to be in. And this is something new that I didn't even know about until like recently. There is a gun lock storage that's happening at the Michigan State Police. They are giving free gun locks to keep around the school, to keep around your house, because that's like a leading cause. Kids get access to guns and then they don't know how to use them, and so they fire them and they hurt people or themselves. I've had stories of my friends accidentally shooting their hamsters. Then again, it makes sense because hamsters always have weird ways that they die. I don't know how. Some of them get scared to death and they just die. So, yeah. And so they are giving those out, and it's just like at the main office and then at the district administrative office, and that will be going on for a while now. And those robocalls at the high school, and I think other schools too, just to keep on, because there are a lot of people that just aren't going to school. They're just not going. And the parents don't even know what's going on. And so they're giving out robocalls. They've implemented that to make sure that everything's known and where's everything's going on. The community fair will be going on soon at the community resource fair at the farmers market on the 27th, which I'm excited about. I love those. I love the fairs. I love the farmers market in general. I've always loved farmers markets. Always my favorite thing. And I think that's all of my updates. I don't have him here, so I had to give all of that at once. So, yeah, that is everything for this month, and I am thoroughly excited for that.
So, do we have any questions?
Do you know more about that event on the 23rd, the Freedom Footsteps? Is that what you called it?
Yes, hold on. So that is a afternoon of history, creativity, and community. The 23rd from 1 to 4 p.m. There will be the wonderful, the power of the Underground Railroad, the Tangled Web exhibit, and meet Shailyn Sims, the author of Journey to Freedom, the Hammer family story, and she will give the creative process behind her graphic novel at 3 o'clock. And then the activities, those activities I shared earlier, there will be more on the Facebook page, Hammer graphic novel on Facebook. And if you want to get the Journey of Freedom book, that will be $5 cash or Venmo, and you can also bring a new pair of socks to donate to the outreach for all of that. And then there's more information that is at 1411 West Webster Road in Royal Oak, and I'm excited for that event.
Excellent. Can you talk about, if you know, about the Haven training?
Haven training actually varies for grade this year. Last year they had everybody having it. So throughout the years, they've been doing it since I was in 8th grade, because I came here 8th grade. They talk about important parts of life, honestly, and it's mostly relatable on sexual assault, assault and other stuff like that. 9th grade will be talking about sexual harassment. 10th grade has dating violence. 11th grade has a sexual assault, and 12th grade has sexual consent. Sexual consent they're going to show you this video that's mostly about like the unconscious people do not want tea, to explain it in a sense that like makes sense to everybody. And Haven Training has been here since 8th grade. I know that they are incredibly helpful in situations. Like if there's even like a tiny issue, they will figure it out and make sure that you are safe. You can always talk to them. There was this guy, I think his name was like, his name also started with an H, which I thought was really cool. His name started with an H, and he was talking from Haven, and I was like, this is amazing. One of my friends talked to him, and that was they got the problem situated, and everything is great. There is a choice to opt out on the 14th about 3 o'clock if wanted by parents. That will be at the high school, and they talk more about since we're all getting older and stuff, and we're all like trying new things. They want to be like, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, this is what you shouldn't do, and so everyone knows exactly what's going on. And it's just honestly just a really great program that they started.
Excellent. Glad that you enjoyed it so much. It's a great program. Thank you. Any other questions? Excellent. Moving on to item number 8, which is communications. Mrs. Anderson?
We've had a few since our last meeting: Michael Carmen, Katie Bonus, Trenton Diggs, and Mike Fournier.
Thank you. So item number 9, which is our consent agenda. The consent agenda generally consists of routine matters as well as items we've covered during this meeting or another board or committee meeting. All items are documented in the minutes, which are published following the meeting at which they were approved. All of our committee and board meetings are open to the public, and public comment is an item on each agenda. We invite members of the public to join our committees. In tonight's consent agenda, we have payment of expenses and 2 field trips. Looks like 1 from the high school to Texas and 1 from the high school to Ohio. Are there any additions or deletions to the consent agenda tonight? Seeing none, we have approved the consent agenda. We're on to item 10.1, which is our superintendent report. Mrs. Fitzpatrick?
Oh, thank you very much. As you know, funding for schools has fluctuated in the state of Michigan, and more importantly, the federal government's obligation through IDEA to fully fund the needs of special education students has always been, or for my entire career, has been in place, and yet they have fallen short of their obligation since passing that law. And so I would like to make a recommendation to this board for the support of full funding of IDEA, which is the main source of the money coming from the federal government through the state of Michigan to assist us with the spending. Whereas public education is the cornerstone of our democracy, providing fundamental skills and opportunities for children across the United States. And whereas in the decade following the Great Recession, students across the U.S. lost nearly $600 billion from the state's disinvestment in their public schools. And whereas before the COVID-19 pandemic, both state and federal funding for public schools was already failing to meet the critical needs of students across the country. And whereas since the COVID-19 pandemic, students have needed additional academic, social, emotional, and mental health needs being met through targeted programming and additional personnel, enhanced professional development opportunities, and new technology such as critical updates to school facilities. And whereas research has consistently shown that increased education funding positively affects academic performance, increased graduation rates, and impacts future earnings. And whereas the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, was passed in 1975, the federal government committed to pay 40% of the average per pupil expenditure for special education to ensure that every child with a disability has access to a high-quality education. And whereas the financial pledge for IDEA has never been met, and it is currently funded at approximately 10.7%, leaving a gap of billions of dollars needed for students. And whereas when Royal Oak Schools' costs to deliver the important services required under IDEA are not properly funded by the federal government, it requires us to reallocate money from other programs to make up for it. And whereas the federal underfunding of IDEA has negatively impacted the academic opportunities of all students for generations, not just those with disabilities. Now therefore be it resolved by Royal Oak Schools as follows. The Royal Oak Schools Board of Education calls on Congress to immediately pass the IDEA Full Funding Act, which would create a 10-year mandatory path to fully fund IDEA. And the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education School Board calls on the state legislature to provide adequate, equitable, and sustainable funding increases to districts to mitigate the harm caused by decades of underfunded schools. And this year, I believe it is the 50th anniversary of the passing of IDEA, and yet I would repeat what was in the proclamation here. The agreement was for 40% to be funded by the federal government, and we currently sit at 10.7% funded. So compound that over the 50 years of falling short of the goal that they had set. So with that, I leave that for your consideration.
I'm looking for a motion and a support to the resolution read by Mrs. Fitzpatrick. We have a motion by Mr. Wiki and a second by Mrs. Cook. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Mrs. Anderson.
I'm wondering if this is passed by this board, will we send copies of it to our legislators?
We absolutely will, yes.
Mrs. Cook.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that obviously this funding is woefully short of the promise that was made, but this is funding that comes through our Department of Education, and just reiterating how important the funding that we do get is to supporting all of our students.
Mr. Wiki.
So in the 50 years of this program, has it ever, in any of those years, met the 40% goal?
No, it has not. I will double check the figure for you, but I don't believe in any of the 50 years it's come even close. But I can get that exact information for you.
And the lack of funding doesn't do anything to decrease the need of our student body for these services.
It does not. Every district that I've been associated with works tirelessly to meet the needs of all students, including those with disabilities. And it's just the choice that it's not even a choice, it's an obligation. And we do that even though we don't get the full funding that was promised.
Thank you.
Do we have any further discussion? Mrs. Anderson.
I did want to thank you for bringing this out for us to consider and vote on tonight. I really appreciate it.
Let's see, no further discussion. I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. Which brings us to item 10.1.2, which is the 2025 MASB Board of Directors election. We are required as a Board of Education to vote for one candidate. We've been given a list of the candidates who are seeking a position on the Michigan Association of School Boards, which is a professional organization that all school boards and school board members are a part of. Guess now I'm looking for a recommendation to place a name in nomination. Mrs. Van Heidsma.
Yes, be it resolved that Royal Oak Schools Board of Education cast a vote for one candidate to represent Region 8 for a 3-year term on the MASB Board of Directors. My recommendation is Roderick Means from Westwood Community School District, Wayne County.
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations for that position? Seeing none, do I have a second on Mrs. Van Heidsma's recommendation? Mrs. Jasinski. Is there any discussion on the motion? Mrs. Van Heidsma.
I also sit on the Oakland County School Board Association, and we did do interviews with 4 of the candidates, which I thought was really important. And I think Roderick Means has 28 years of being on a school board, which is just crazy to me. But just shows his passion for the work. And I think one of the other things is good, he's from Wayne County, so just diversifying the membership of MASB to just bring in other counties, because there's a strong Oakland County representation there, so I think a voice of another county is really important. And if you watch the interview, that's why I considered him as
the candidate, so.
I agree completely. Thank you. Any other discussion? Mrs. Jasinski. Ms. Jasinski.
No news since last month. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate too that I thought that Roderick Means was definitely the strongest candidate of those that were interviewed, and I think that it's a really exciting voice that he's bringing, because I also think that he shows like a really strong commitment to the consistent learning that we all think is important in schools and in our position on the board. That he's really dedicated to like the classes that we are able to take and the training that we're able to take, and he's also presented at a lot of conferences like on behalf of what he's learned over his 28 years of service, and so that that commitment was really convincing to me. So, yep, excited.
Any other discussion? Not call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. To agenda item 10.2, which is curriculum and instruction. Dr. Ioannis?
Thank you, Mr. Jaworski. Let me just get our video ready. So in December, if you recall, our Insight into Learning video student broadcasting focused on students in grades K through 8. So that was our initial introduction to how our students in Royal Oak interact and engage with our broadcasting opportunities. Tonight is part 2, which will focus more at the high school level. And what we'll see is a progression of opportunities for students to continue to grow in the broadcasting and presenting area. So we'll get that started here now.
When kids get to Royal Oak High School, then they get to build upon all the skills they learned in the elementaries and middle school and turn it into something that could actually be a career option for themselves. So the first level class is the Introduction to Video Production course, where the students are learning just the basics, how to use these cameras, how to edit, how to tell story, and they also get to work as camera operator for things through WOAK, football games, basketball games, swim meets, choir concerts, and they get to get some hands-on experience doing that. The following year, they can take the Advanced TV class, which is a year-long course where they are doing the live broadcasting. After that, there's a third-year course, which is basically a film production, documentary production course, where they are really learning the art of media and storytelling, and can have the opportunity to become the executive producer of the Raven Report, which almost becomes like a co-teacher with me, showing some of the intro-level kids how things work around here. We also offer a very cool employment opportunity, which is a co-op position through WOAK, where a student is essentially hired in through the school district, and 2 hours of their day, they're producing media. And they're not producing media for themselves or their friends. They're producing media for the community.
Co-op has been excellent in my pursuit of a career in film and television and broadcasting, and just, it's provided me a lot of opportunities to work with equipment that is, useful, to meet new people and make connections with people who could teach me things, who could benefit by future in the industry. And just doing that, it's been really fun just to go to events and get to work and take videos, take pictures, edit them, and just do something as a job that I would be doing anyways as a hobby.
The skills that the students take away from this class range from everything technical, from all of the cameras to the editing software program that they use, to a TriCaster program, to podcasting equipment. But what really drives this class are the soft skills, the skills that employers are looking for, any employer.
Some skills I've learned in this class is that lots of team building, the whole Raven Report is we need to talk with everybody in the studio to make sure everything is perfect, everything is running. The director talks to the floor director talks to the talent and everyone in that room, and then just everything is kind of it's like a masterpiece, like an artwork. We all put our own spin on it and make it the best we can.
The skills I've learned in this class are communication, And I think just being ready pretty much at any second for things to change and not go your way. And I think that prepares me for my future job or whatever I do, to just know that things aren't always perfect. But also the communicating factor is a huge part of just everyday life, whether that's in your job. And if you're going into this industry, now I don't know what I'm gonna do in the future, but I do know that the skills I'm learning, like communicating with people and doing these different experiences, can go with any career you do.
The broadcast program at the high school goes well beyond the walls of this classroom. While we do live broadcasting from the classroom, it's important for the students to get out into real-world applications through something like WOAK, the school district's cable channel, where we also partner with CMN TV. And students are doing play-by-play broadcasts of basketball games. Anything they can get their hands on equipment in a real-world production application is how they really build their skills. As an elective course, a non-required course, sometimes it's hard to get kids excited that don't know this is here. So having the third graders from Keller Elementary come in and work on a broadcast one day, or the kids who come in from the 5th grade up to in the afternoon to do their last broadcast here in these studios, bringing the kids from NTM, from the middle school over here on tour dates to see what we do is the best marketing I can do to get the kids who are already here in our district, who are taking those classes, to get excited about coming here, what they call the big leagues.
So starting off in elementary school, our broadcasting program, I didn't really, obviously I was young, it wasn't really in my mind, like I would be doing it in the future or even in high school. So it was just an experience of wanting to get out there and be present in my school.
Well, my broadcasting class in elementary school was a lot less basic compared to like WOAK. Like when I first walked into the high school, or when I first walked into this class, I was like, whoa, like this, like the camera equipment is a lot better, and just like a lot more like stuff to like learn. Like the one at Northwood Elementary, it was just like kind of like cameras, like a mic, and then like weather and the news for a bit, and that was kind of it.
Mr. Conrad just does a great job in guiding us to all the great things that we do, but not being like in charge of us. We have so much freedom, and it's great because there's so many different unique parts to this class. I don't think there's no way our whole class would say we like just one part. There's so many different factors, and that also goes with the family and team aspect, that we all are different pieces that just come together.
So as you can see, we do have a nice progression from the elementary level students that are working on, I do remember these times, it's the weather and what's for lunch are the big topics that they do, and they would have their script and they would practice it, and I would walk by and they were very excited to do that. And then as it progresses to the middle school level, where they're using some of the equipment that was passed down from the high school, and then launching right into that high school opportunity is really nice to see. And thank you to all those teachers and staff members that are involved in that. Our communications department, Ms. Murphy and Mr. Grisburn, do a wonderful job getting these videos ready, a lot of editing, a lot of adjusting, a lot of feedback that we provide them, and they're always open to making those changes. So we do appreciate having that team together to work with. I do want to spend a little bit of time next talking about virtual learning days that we'll be adding to the 24-25 school calendar here. As discussed and approved during our finance and facilities meeting, we identified 3 virtual learning days that we're going to add to our school calendar. One of those days will be at the middle school, April 9th, and then we have 2 days, April 10th and 11th, that will take place at the high school. So under Section 21F of the State School Aid Act, school districts are allowed up to 15 virtual days learning, where they can take advantage of providing students ways of learning at home, and then bringing smaller groups of students in for the state mandated state testing that takes place during the spring. So what we wanted to do here, Mr. Loomis, principal at the high school, and Ms. Meldrum, principal at the middle school, were talking and came to me with a great idea on how we can provide better testing environments for our students at this middle school and high school level. So, of course, with board approval, what we have in place here is opportunities for students who are going to be virtual learning at home, to take some surveys focused on at the middle school, career-focused opportunities through their program that they have there. High school students will be completing some work online and a survey as well. In both of those opportunities, we will have staff members readily available virtually for the students at home if they want to check in. We're not mandating that students connect live. We're not mandating that students take advantage of that live opportunity with our staff, but we do have dedicated teachers throughout that day to help support students there. To give you an idea of the number of students that will be there, for example, at the high school, one of those days will roughly be 670 students in that building testing, which is a far cry from a normal student count on a regular day. So, and this is the same for the middle school, that it's smaller number of students there, the 8th graders coming in only. And they're gonna be able to spread those students out into smaller groups and provide better testing environments for those students. And of course, we have our wonderful staff and teachers that are going to be there to help support the kids that are in person, more teachers to proctor exams and kind of be with students to provide that support. Our students with IEPs will also have opportunity for extended time as part of their individual education plan. Some do have opportunities for extended time for testing, so we're going to have that opportunity there. Lunch will be served. Thank you, Mike Jacobs, for that at both sites during those times. So I just wanted to also give one last update. Mr. Loomis and Ms. Meldrum worked really hard to put together some parent communications, and they worked together to time it. Those went out this week, so our families at the middle school and high school level have more detailed information regarding these dates and what their kids can do, and they're also going to work on some further communication as we get closer to those April dates. But we'll be taking advantage of 3 of those 15 virtual learning days for this school year. And that's all I have for tonight.
Any questions for Dr. Ioannis? Ms. Van Hetzma.
It's not so much a question, but just to kind of piggyback on the WOAK and the work of the high school students, if you could just make mention of our students that are up for the award in Lansing. That's kind of huge. But just to reiterate, the work that the high school students do in that space is just amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. And I've talked to Mr. Conrad for years about the podcast abilities and finding ways to use them for communications as I think of the wellness committee and just getting more words, more things out, and using the student voice in the podcasts would be just like such a win-win. And we thought that that's something that people would appreciate more, is those little snippets of information like that. But yeah, if we could elaborate on our students, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. So we've shared some information in our district newsletters, and we'll be adding more. But 2 of our student pieces are up for an award, and it's really through the Michigan organization for broadcasters and in the student division. So it's not just for students. There'll be plenty of professionals there in their own division, but we found out that 2 of our student pieces were nominated, and some of us are going up to that award ceremony. One of them was with regard to an athletic contest, a production that was done there. The other was the dedication of the Hamer Park that you mentioned when we had that earlier this school year, and when that sculpture was unveiled there, and a student covered that piece and did interviews. And so both of those pieces will be highlighted.
Ms. Cook.
How will parents know if their child may be a part of an extended testing period?
That's a great question. So in talking to Mr. Loomis and Ms. Meldrum, they do have another communication plan more specifically for those families that have students that will need the extended time. So I believe they're going to reach out to those families individually, and I'm sure caseload managers will help communicate how this is going to look like throughout the day for their testing environment. Thank you.
I caught your eye, Ms. Hamilton. Go ahead.
So, being a student there, I have the email pulled up right now. So, for April 9th, the Wednesday, 9th grade will have a virtual day, same with 12th grade. Both of 9th and 12th grade will be doing student voice survey, and then college and career development on Zello, and then any assignments that will be needed for the end of the quarter. And then 10th and 11th grade will be doing pre-SAT and then SAT. Sounds absolutely horrifying because I don't want to do SAT. But then Ms. scared for that. And then Thursday, it will be 10th and 12th grade at home doing the same thing. And then 9th grade will be doing PSAT. And then 11th grade will be doing work keys. And then that'll be like roughly the same time. And as it says, if you has any accommodations, details will be sent on a later date. And anything about that, and then anything will be accessible during a Google Meet, actually, instead of like emails, because I always forget if I send those or not. I worry about that. But if I can just get in Google Meet with someone, it'll be really easy and amazing. And more information will be sent soon. I don't know more about that part because I just didn't read that entire email. But it says that you should bring a Chromebook charger, water, and snacks. And if you have a bag, it will be placed in the front of the room. No watches, no highlighters, anything like that. And that is about what I have on this email, and I thought that would be perfect timing because I've had that pulled up.
It is perfect timing. Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Dr. Ioannis? Mr. Wiki?
Just a reiteration of what the dates were. I think April 9th was at ROMS?
Yeah, we have, let me guess, we have April 9th, and, I'm sorry, April 9th is ROMS, and, let me get it right here. Yeah, April 9th is ROMS, and then 10th, 10 and 11. I'm sorry, April 9th, high school and the middle school. April 10th is only the high school. So 3 total days, 2 at the high school, 1 at the middle school.
Any other questions? Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Ioannis. Brings us to item 10.3, which is our finance and facilities and bond update. Ms. Isabella.
Good evening. I have 3 items for you on tonight's agenda, and I need to get my presentation pulled up. Oh, there it goes. Sometimes we have a little delay in our technology. I don't know if the tech took a snow day today too. I was working from home. I even had people reach out to me and say, is Business Plus working today? It was. It just was taking its time too. Oh, there is a delay. All right, let's give it a second to load. It's loaded here. Oh. You want me to tell a joke? Hold on one second. I'm not that funny. Okay. There we go. Sometimes it takes a second time around. All right. So I have 3 things for you on tonight's agenda. Number 10.3.1 is a community service fund amendment number 1. For you here on this slide, you can see the 23-24 actual numbers from our audit, the 24-25 original budget that you approved in June of 2024, our actual numbers to date, and then the 24-25 budget amendment number 1 that I am recommending tonight. I want to remind you that the Community Service Fund primarily houses the Churchill Alternative High School, the Great Start Readiness Program, and then other fee-for-service programs. We have a tuition-based preschool and then latchkey. And then there's some wraparound care. We informally call it child care, but it's wraparound care for GSRP and tuition preschool. Some of the most notable things is there is a general fund transfer of $1.2 million needed to subsidize the fund. But I want to remind you that there are generally from year to year about 60 to 80 students at the Churchill Alternative High School. For each student, we receive a foundation allowance of $10,197. So that FTE and that per student amount does not go directly into the community service fund. It goes into the general fund. So that is the primary amount of that transfer. And then in addition, I want to also point out that all of the expenses for this building, heat, electric, the Churchill building is also in the community service fund because that school resides here. So there's some of that occurs within the community service fund as well. So there was an increase of $368,000 roughly of an increase in revenue to this fund. There was an increase of $24,000 to subsidize from the general fund. a decrease of $65,000 in latchkey revenue. Now, I did reach out to Ms. Truesdale and said, hey, I just want to make sure that this wasn't due to not, having an issue with staffing or any kind of wait list. She said the primary change in the latchkey revenue has been due to the breakfast club and the free breakfast that we serve within our elementary schools. So less parents are participating in AM latchkey. So that is the primary reason for the change in that revenue. There's a decrease of $290,000 in tuition preschool, but wait, the reason for that is there has been an increase in GSRP. So last year, we had 3 classes of tuition preschool that are now this year GSRP classrooms. So we have a total of 5 GSRP classrooms now. That increase in allocation from the county for GSRP has been an increase of $612,000. We have a carryover of last year's GSRP from the 23-24 school year of $11,900. And then we received some startup grants for those new classrooms. And then in addition, we expanded from, I believe it was 16 to 20 students. Am I right? Does that sound right? So with that expansion, we also received a startup grant. So those are the changes in the revenue, and then the opposing expenditure side was mostly due to aligning salary benefits and the contracted child care and latchkey. Any questions about the community service fund?
Mr. Wiki.
We have 80, is it adult education students here?
No, so the adult ed students, those programs reside within the general fund.
All right.
This is an alternative high school, and I believe they go up to age of 20.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, it was answered.
Did you want to approve the community service fund before we do the food service fund?
Absolutely. Okay. Bring us to 10.3.1. I'm looking for a motion. Ms. Van Heidsma.
Be it resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the 24-25 Community Service Fund Amendment as presented.
And do we have a second? Ms. Alexander. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
10.3.2 on tonight's agenda is a food service fund amendment number 1. I work on this particular budget with Mr. Jacobs, who's still in the back of the room if we haven't mentioned him enough this evening. We have the 23-24 audited numbers, the 24-25 original budget that was approved in June, our actual to date, and then the 24-25 budget amendment that I'm recommending for you this evening. I would like to remind you that the reason that we have a structural deficit in the food service fund is because we can only hold 3 months of operating income because the food service fund is a federal program. The reimbursement rate has gone up, our participation's gone up, so we've had some additional revenue in this fund. So we have planned projects, most notably this year would be the Adams and Keller kitchen equipment went into this. Last year, remember we did the Royal Oak High School loading dock. We also recently replaced the Northwood servery. So those are planned projects because we're required to reduce our fund balance in the food service fund. Other than that, the revenue was increased due to more participation. Then, and of course, we have more participation. There's more food costs, more labor costs, so those expenditures have also gone up. Are there any questions?
Yes, Mr. Wiki.
I know I'm asking questions that probably everyone else is aware of, but for this amendment, we're adjusting funds from the general fund into this?
No, so this is this specific fund, and all we're doing is having our expenses and revenue meet what we now expect to happen for the remainder of the year. So we're just changing what we're forecasting.
Okay, thank you.
Great, any other questions for Isabella? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a motion. Ms. Cook.
Be it resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the 2024-2025 Food Service Fund Amendment as presented.
Excellent. Do I have a second? Mr. Wiki, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
And finally, 10.3.3 on tonight's agenda is the approval of a Section 127 plan, and that's an educational assistance program so that we can provide through grants either tuition or student loan repayment for our staff. And mostly that resides within our teachers unit and then our administrators unit. So this would benefit our employees to receive those programs up to $5,250 per year, tax-free. Are there any questions about the program?
Ms. Anderson.
My understanding is that not every district does this.
That is correct.
talk
So
about- yeah.
this is something we're doing that's going to benefit our staff. The only cost to the district was the fact that we had the plan drawn up by our legal counsel. But otherwise, there's no benefit or detriment to the district. This is just us doing something good for our staff members.
Mr. Wiki.
Would we say, though, there is a benefit to the district in that our staff, who we all value so much, get the opportunity to increase their own educational perspectives throughout, making them better at what they do for us and for our school district?
That is true.
Great.
Any other questions or comments for Ms. Abella? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a motion. Ms. Jasinski.
Be it resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the approves the Section 127 plan as presented.
Do I have a second? Ms. Cook. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Ms. Bella. Item 10.4 tonight on the agenda is the Staff and Student Services Report. Ask Mr. Walensky for his presentation.
Great, thank you. Item 10.4.1 on tonight's agenda is, for your approval, is a list of our personnel changes since we last met. And you will see 10 recommendations for hire in this month. 2 resignations and 2 terminations, and I'll just talk about those quickly. 7 of those 10 recommendations for hire are for paraprofessional positions, which, as I always say, we're always in need of, which is a good thing. But we did lose 2, 1 through resignation and 1 through termination. But we gained 5 paraprofessionals in the past month. The other 3 recommendations for hire are for 2 speech and language pathologists, which we're always in need of as well, and 1 school social worker who's actually filling in as a long-term substitute for a parental leave for the balance of the school year. So those are the 10 recommendations for hire. We also received a resignation from one of our evening adult education teachers and 1 termination of a preschool teacher, which was actually the elimination of a preschool position in our early childhood program. And that is item 10.4.1.
Are there any questions for Mr. Walensky? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a motion. Ms. Alexander.
Resolved, the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education approves the regular personnel changes as presented.
And do we have a second? Ms. Anderson. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you. I just, one more chance to highlight the wonderful work of our video folks, Jarrett Grismer and team. And I understand there's a public service announcement that will be going out about the value of paraprofessionals and how anyone watching this or watching that can apply for one of those positions. We are in constant need for paraprofessionals. They are the direct adult support to our students with high need in the district. And I know that Mr. Walensky often talks about how many open positions we have and how many we're hiring, and the numbers don't always line up, and that's because our students' needs change every day. So as an IEP meeting is held, there may be a decision to add a paraprofessional for a student, or maybe in some cases the student is becoming more independent, and so those numbers change. But that video was very well done. Rob Dedeker from our secondary specialist, our secondary support person from special education. He is in the video, does a very nice job, but we encourage anyone watching this, if you have an interest in working with students in our district, please apply.
All right, thank you. We're on to item number 11, which is our second opportunity for public comments. See, there's been no cards swallowed. Anybody have anything to say from the audience? Excellent. Moving on to item 12. We're almost done, I promise. Which is the board comments and liaison reports. We have 3 committee reports to present tonight from board members. I'll start with the city school liaison report. City school liaison is a group of 3 school board trustees, 3 city commissioners, and various administrators and staff from both the city and the school. What we discussed at that meeting a couple weeks ago was the school and city potentially working on a grant opportunity that will benefit both. Details are being worked out right now, and we'll have more to come on that as that moves forward. We discussed the Grant Park lease. There's a park in Royal Oak on 4th Street called Grant Park. The school district actually owns that property. We lease it to the city. We had discussions on the lease extension on that property. We discussed the aquatics program, and more to come on that. The city may have a plan. And Holly Donahue, who is the city engineer, gave us a presentation on all the summer construction projects that may have some impact or effect on any of our buildings and schools. Does anybody from the board have any questions on my report? Thank you. Moving on to the Communications Committee, I'm going to ask Ms. Van Heidsma to give an update on that.
So since our last board meeting, we had our Communications Committee meeting chaired by Amy Murphy and Ms. Fitzpatrick. We talked a lot about the goals of the committee. We've talked about that over time, and I think just really honing in on what is important to people from a communications perspective is pretty important. So we did a review of how we handle our communications. So since we just had a few snow/winter days, you know, we have text messaging, we have email alerts, we have phone calls. And just as a reminder too to parents, make sure your MyStar information is consistently updated and current so that you receive those communications. But then we also talked a bit about what is our goal of the Communications Committee. What is it that we do? Who is our audience? That was, we had a new participant community member show up at our last meeting, which is always nice to have a community voice, and just, you know, talked a bit about, so how do you hear about our schools, right? You know, just those basics. If you don't have a child in our school, how do you hear about our schools and all the amazing things that we do that not everybody knows about? So we talked about how do we amplify that, because there are so many great things that we do, and just making sure people are aware of it. And then talking about staying ahead of communication. And then another thing we talked about are some changes to the dispatch, and even just some of our communications that are sent out by the schools, that we feel that sometimes specific topics are buried in those longer communications. And perhaps when there's a specific topic, we send out an email and communication specific to that one topic that we want to make sure people see it. So they don't stop scrolling through a communication halfway down, that if it's something that's that important, we need to highlight it as its own individual communication. We talked about the format. I said the format changes to the dispatch. And then just a reaffirmation of the committee description, which I said. And then we talked a little bit about the podcast as well. You know, our high school has this amazing equipment, and the kids have such passion for it. And Mr. Conrad has passion for it, as he is also on this committee. And just talking about how do we utilize that, and maybe what's a better option is smaller segments of, you know, information for people so that they absorb it better. You know, podcasts are a way, you know, I know myself, I'll be sitting at my desk sometimes and I just put on a podcast and listen to a weekly one that I always listen to. And you turn it on, you turn it off, you can listen to it at your leisure. It's not like reading a whole email. So we just talked a little bit about that on trying to accommodate people's desire for communication in different ways, because it's important, so. And that's all. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Van Heidsma? No? Excellent. Moving on to the curriculum committee. I'm going to ask Ms. Cook for her presentation.
Okay, thank you. So we just met on Tuesday, I believe, for the curriculum meeting, and we talked a great deal about the Cognia accreditation process. So, of course, we're accredited through the state, but our district goes above and beyond and participates in a couple of accreditation processes, one of which many of us may be familiar with, the IB, that our schools are involved with. But we also participate in the Cognia accreditation process. And so I guess this is an accrediting body that is in more than 80 countries. And so we are going through the process. It's kind of like a 5-year process, and this is the year of review. Things that the reviewers will be looking for is their 4 key characteristics: culture of learning, leadership for learning, engagement of learning, and growth in learning. And then the reviewers look at documents. There are classroom visits involved, just to kind of review all of our processes. Under all of those characteristics are numerous subcategories of things that we want to ensure that are happening in all of our schools. And so this is just a great opportunity for us to celebrate the things that we're doing well and to see what other areas we may want to have opportunities for improvement in. So that continuous improvement that we all want to aspire to. We also did talk about career readiness education. And for instance, talking about the Zello that students will be working on is part of the components that we use for career readiness. Some areas that were discussed that are needed areas for future careers are careers in advanced manufacturing, construction, health sciences, information technology, transportation, mobility, logistics, and energy. TMLE was a new, that transportation, mobility, logistics, and energy was a new acronym for me to digest. We talked about elementary schools getting books that are focused on various careers, and that there are maker spaces in each of our elementary schools for students to explore various things related to that. There are lessons with bee-bots and straw bees, all sorts of stuff. So that was those were some of the things that we discussed in the curriculum meeting recently. Oh, and the next meeting will be March 26th, right here in this room, 6 o'clock.
Do you think there are any questions for Ms. Cook? Excellent, thank you. Back to you, Anis.
This is how my life should be. Just turn the mic off. Just this is a great reminder. Thank you, Ms. Cook, for this. Our Royal Oak Schools Foundation, with the leadership of Ms. Van Heidsma, worked to put together a grant through the city of Royal Oak that really provided us with $36,000, and those opportunities were turned into what Ms. Cook just mentioned, books at the elementary level, in all of our classrooms focused on career readiness, topics that were really engaging in the B-Bots and maker spaces at each of the 6 elementary schools. Also, the funding came from that grant through the foundation, through the city of Royal Oak. And we are very appreciative of those opportunities and excited to get those into our buildings and students working with those.
Sorry, I was trying to catch you while you had it in front of you. Is the Cognia process something that we choose to do, or is it part of our MyKIP evaluation, or, yeah?
That's a great question. For the many years, those of us that have been in education and have been teachers, we remember the NCA process which turned into Accreditate, Advanced Ed. These are all different agencies that work with school districts and institutions to get the accreditation process. So Cognia really is the continuation of those. And when we went to the Cognia training, they really did point out there's a lot of parallel work with our MyKIP plan, focusing on continuous improvement, like Ms. Cook mentioned. So there is a lot of parallel to it. In the past, when school districts had the blue ribbon schools, and if you recall those times when those banners would be put out in front of the schools, that was part of an accreditation process. So we're seeing some parallel across both of these components, which is the nice thing is the work that we're doing is really going to be able to touch on all those areas. And the standards are a little bit different that Ms. Cook mentioned. They tie in a little bit differently than MyKIP, but they're still focusing on continuous improvement and providing excellence in education and making sure that institutions are doing that. So.
Excellent, thank you. Moving on to board comments. Do you have any comments from the board today? Ms. Anderson.
We were all able to attend PTA Founders Day a couple weeks ago, which was, as always, a lovely event. But I did want to say that I'm really proud that we're part of PTA in this district. The state president was there and spoke about the values of PTA, and I was very moved by her comments, and I really appreciated everything that she had to say. So the other thing I noticed, we have a very long list of events coming up, but one thing we didn't talk about was soup and salad with the super. And I'm wondering if we could hear more about that. I'm wondering about soup and salad with the super.
There you go. Thank you very much. Soup with the superintendent. So this is something that we had started a few years ago. Ms. Murphy arranges it, and we actually provide work with the groups to provide transportation from the senior housing facilities in Royal Oak to bring them over to the senior center near Royal Oak High School. It's a chance for me to not only talk with the seniors in the community, take their questions, but it's a wonderful time to highlight high school students who come over, help serve the lunch, and new this year, for that event, we will have an activity between the senior citizens and the students that are there. So more to come on that. But that's a really good event and just a way for us to, it was mentioned earlier, talk with those who don't have children in our schools, but certainly are very interested in the work we do.
Ms. Van Heinsma.
I wanted to do a shout out to the Early Childhood Center and Danielle Truesdale. Mrs. Anderson and I were able to do a tour last Friday. And if you've never been inside the Early Childhood Center, it's just an amazing space. It was a day that little people weren't there, limited numbers of little people. But it's just, we interacted with her staff. She sat down and talked with us, explained the program. It always warms my heart to go in that space, and all the chairs are up to your knees. It's kind of funny. But just the amazing things and the way that those students are learning and the importance of those programs that we offer to families, it's just huge. It's just a fantastic program, and Danielle is running an amazing ship there with all the staff. So just a huge thank you to her for taking the time to spend with us, and all the staff there as well, just to spend the time talking to us as well. We did see there were some little people on nap time. And so they have these teeny tiny little, it's just the cutest thing, those teeny tiny little beds that are like 3 inches from the floor. And then we creep through quietly just to not disturb anybody, and of course they all wake up. But it was just, and it's amazing. It's a great program, and I'm glad that we're able to offer that within our district. It's really important. So thank you, Danielle and team.
Like any other board comments? I just want to draw attention to the list of events to actually the board and to the audience. Our meeting in April is scheduled for April 17th. The regular board meeting is being moved in combination with our Finance and Facilities meeting 1 week earlier on April 10th. The Finance and Facilities meeting will be at 5:30, and the board meeting will be at 6:30 that night. Any other comments? Mr. Wicke?
I'm just looking at my calendar. You're saying the Finance and Facilities at 8, oh, well, I'm looking at July, so that's not going to help. I'll get back to you. Thank you.
Excellent. Ms. Cook?
I just wanted to thank the high school students that made it to our most recent lunch with the board members and superintendent. We had some really great conversation with students representing a variety of groups and clubs throughout the school, and let's keep that going. It was really nice to speak with so many students about their interests and what makes Royal Oak Schools great. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Fitzpatrick?
Just a point of clarification. So our finance and facility meeting would be the first Thursday of the month. Typically, that falls on spring break this year, which is April the 3rd. And so instead, we'll move the F&F meeting to be on the same day as the regular board meeting, which is April 10th, as Mr. Jaworski said. So finance and facilities is at 5:30. Regular board meeting will start no sooner than 6:30 p.m. that evening.
Ignore everything I said about April 17th. Ms. Van Heidsma?
Ms. Fitzpatrick, do you think you could speak to, because I know I talked about this at my PTA meeting this week, the Unified Showcase basketball game? Because if you've never been to one of the Unified games, if you could speak a little bit about that.
I sure can. So on March the 15th, it's a Saturday. It's a very busy day in Royal Oak. Our very own Unified basketball team will have the opportunity to play on the court at Little Caesars Arena. That is a fundraiser as well as a game against our rivals. Just on the other side of our border here with Clawson Schools. Many Unified teams from across the metro area will play a game on that court that day. And then in addition, for the ticket price, you also are able to stay for the Red Hot Pistons game, which will be that evening. So it's a pretty cool event. But also that same day, it is the City of Royal Oak St. Patrick's Day Parade, and I believe both events start at the exact same time. So that's a good challenge for us. But the Unified Sports basketball team, you know, it's something where I applaud all of the students who participate. Not only are students with need who get an opportunity to engage in physical activity and be a part of a team. We talked earlier about soft skills and all the things that our students get to do, but also our other students who help on the court, help them navigate the game, the rules, and really just make it a full community event. So those tickets are on sale now, and we'd love to have more folks from the community come out and watch that game. And that would be at noon on March the 15th.
And how do they purchase tickets? I'm sorry.
We can share that out. I believe it's up on our website, but they're also selling them through the athletic department at Royal Oak High School.
If any other board comments? Seeing none and no further business in front of this body, we are adjourned.